Okay, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I'm Trisha Ryden. I'm Adult Services Librarian at the library. And for those of you who don't know, this is Veronique Ludington, and she's been wonderful enough to do this this cooking series for us again this winter, and I'm so excited and so grateful because Vero's amazing and such a good friend to the library. As this is the first of a series of 3 Zoom cooking programs that she's doing this winter, I'm going to send the link to register for next month's program when we send out the rest of the recipe after the program. And again, as I said, we do ask that you keep your microphone muted so that we can all hear Veronique, but go ahead and write anything you have in the chat box. And we're hoping to be able to put the recording onto the library's YouTube channel, but also I'm happy to email it to anybody who wants. And I'm going to go ahead now and turn things over to the wonderful Veronique.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So good evening for those who already know me, well, you know me. And for those who don't, I'm Veronique. I'm from France originally, and I used to work at the library, and now I still participate by doing these fun cooking classes that I think people have come to like. And it's a good fun thing to do for the winter. So today we're gonna talk about Thanksgiving sides. I thought that when we have like big holidays like that, even in France, we tend to have like a lot of food on the table. So it's really nice to have like at least some things that are not like super heavy or super full of big fats and things like that. So that's why I thought tonight I'd kind of like go over like a couple things with you. We're gonna do the leek and butternut gratin. And then I'm going to talk about doing simple green beans and different ways to cook them, to serve them. And then I'm going to go over roasting vegetables because I think that roasting vegetables is such an easy way to make even a side dish for an everyday dinner. But also for the holidays, you can mix and match. You can use different spices, different herbs, and make a nice side with not too much effort, really. So I'll start with the gratin. So I chose gratin. Hello. I chose gratin because it's really one of my favorite dishes that I grew up with. And actually, gratin. So for those who don't know, it's kind of like usually it's like an equivalent of scalloped potatoes, but kind of enhanced. So gratin was invented in 1565 in Italy. And of course, it's not what we're gonna, what we eat today, but it was a version of it. And the gist of it was basically potatoes sliced with some type of milk or cream and cheese, if available. It was very simple, but it was kind of like, oven baked or slowly cooked. And then it kind of migrated to Switzerland, and they kind of put their touch on it. So they added a lot more cheese to it, and that was about the end of the 16th century. And then it crossed over to the Alps in France, and that was during the Revolution. Yeah, the French Revolution. So the beginning of the Revolution, 1788, it's when people start to kind of wake up to how they're being treated and how they're being exploited. And in the Alps, there's a big faction there that's starting to revolt. And one of the dukes, to kind of quell the farmers of the area, he decides to have this recipe made that he just saw when he was over in Switzerland, and that's the gratin. And because they were in the area called Dauphiné, they call it the gratin dauphinois. So that's really the main potato gratin in Europe. In France is the gratin dauphinois.
inflation and the state of the
Okay, am I unmuted? Somebody else is not muted because I can hear some chatter. Are we okay, Tricia?
We are okay. Sorry about that, everybody. We're just running into a few little technical difficulties, and we just ask that you please do keep your microphone off. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we hear everything I said before?
Everything but just the last quick bit.
Okay, so the gratin dauphinois is basically the potato gratin that's famous in France, and it's called dauphinois because the Duke of Dauphiné, which is a big area in the Alps, is the one who served it to people when he had a talk with townspeople and farmers to kind of like try to quell the beginning of the revolution. Obviously, it didn't work, but I'm sure they very much liked the gratin. So our leek and butternut gratin. So it kind of like diverges from the gratin dauphinois in that we use leeks and butternut, but we're still going to use the dairy part, which is the cream, or you can even use milk. And we're going to use leeks, and leeks are basically to replace onions. So it's just a nice substitute, a little more fiber, and but kind of like the oniony taste. You do not have to use leeks if you do not like leeks or onions. The amount we're going to use, and because we're going to cook it beforehand, is not going to give it a strong taste. It's just going to give it like if you were frying onions and then using them in the gratin. Also, gratins can be made without milk or cream. You can use chicken broth to make it, and you will obviously not get an as creamy result, but it will still be very good, and with a lot of herbs like thyme and things like that. So that's another way to make a gratin, which is also very delicious, and I'll put that in the recipes that we'll send out. You can also make gratin out of other vegetables. You can use parsnips, you can use rutabaga, turnips, and then summer veggies, but we're not in that season anymore. Parsnip gratin is actually really good too, and you can just use the same recipe. And the other alternative is you can mix up potatoes and butternut. So you can do half butternut, half potato slices, and that's a nice taste too. So for this particular leek and butternut gratin, we have 2 pounds of butternut squash that we sliced vertically to obtain these nice little slices. So I did them by hand. I'm sure you can do them with a machine, but you don't want them too thick. So I said about like 1/4 to 1/8 inch thick is the maximum. And the half discs like that work out the best. They're not too small, so they won't break apart in the gratin. It's easier to cut the butternut squash itself after you peeled it. It's easier to do the half discs. So that's what I have. And I'm going to keep about, I had a little pile here of my best slices, which were, yes, Brittany, yes, you can cut in advance and store in the fridge. I wouldn't do that more than a day because then it kind of dries out. And I don't like to leave them in water. So I did that like this morning. I think that's fine. Probably like 24 hours. So I'll keep my best slices for the top of the gratin. And that's just to make a nice, a nice looking top. Obviously, you don't have to. Underneath, I stay pretty, pretty regular in the layers, but you can just like throw them around. You don't need to arrange them prettily at the bottom. So I'll keep those for later. I'm gonna preheat my oven to 375. And remember, to bake most dishes like that, you want to have your oven preheated always. I'm gonna take a gratin dish. So that's an official French gratin dish. But anything glass or pottery will be fine. You don't want something too tall. So that's about like barely 2 inches high. That's more than enough. You want something where you're not gonna have, 1,000 layers. You want the layers to come about a little under a quarter an inch from the top so that nothing boils over. So that's a good size. You can use a rectangular pan. With the amounts I put in the recipe here, I'm gonna say a 13 by 9 or like a 12-inch round pan. And the important one is you're gonna butter your pan before you start anything. So you're gonna butter your pan, nothing fancy about it, just butter that you got out of the fridge about half an hour ago. And a little note here. So here in my recipe, in the recipe I'm using, we're gonna use the garlic in the cream and warm it up to room temperature at least so that everything in the dish goes at the same temperature. You don't want to shock your dish by starting with very cold cream and the room temperature butternut because it's going to take longer to warm up in the oven. Therefore, it's going to take a lot longer to cook. And the goal is to have it cook in a reasonable amount of time. The garlic is going to go in the cream later. But there's another way to do it is you take garlic cloves if you don't want too much garlic and you just rub it in the dish after you've greased the dish. And you'd be amazed that that's enough to give you a little taste of garlic, but nothing like super strong. I remember my grandma when she did the gratin, the potato gratin, she only did that. She never like put garlic inside. She just rubbed the clove around the dish and that's it. Garlic is pretty strong. So we have our butternut and we had our leeks. So I cooked the leeks already. The leeks were just like sliced thinly and they were cooked in a saute pan for like 6 to 8 minutes. They're just roughly cooked because they're gonna cook in the gratin dish again. Some people can even put it raw. I don't like to put it raw because it's gonna render juice that we don't want in the gratin, the water. But you just saute the leeks in olive oil and butter together, heat them in a saute pan, and saute the leeks on low medium for about 6 to 8 minutes. Just make sure they don't burn when you saute them. So reduce the temperature if you see that it's starting to burn, and use a cover on the pan so that the moisture doesn't evaporate quickly, and then you just have like these dry pieces of leeks that are just burning really fast. And it's kind of tricky to accomplish, just because most of the time we don't realize how fast they're cooking and they're burning but not cooking. So just be careful on that. Just start with real low to medium temperature. And if it takes you a little longer, it's fine. It's better than burning them. So, and those we're gonna use in between the layer of butternut in the gratin. And like I said, you don't have to do the leeks. You can do like half the quantity of the leeks that were in the ingredients. You can just adjust a little bit. And if you don't feel comfortable, you don't like leeks, or you don't know what they taste like, some people just don't like them, just use half a small onion, half a small regular yellow onion, chop it up, and the same. Saute the onion in a saute pan before you put them in the dish with the butternut. Other than the main ingredient, which is here the butternut or like the potatoes, you want everything in there to be cooked first. That's going to render any water, because otherwise you're going to dilute your milk or cream, and it's going to be kind of liquidy. You'll never, the water is never going to evaporate fully once you bake the dish. So you'll have something that's kind of soggy instead of something that ends up being like, just soaked in the liquid, but crispy on the top. And that's what you want to achieve, really. For potato gratin, I will say that you'll find a lot of different recipes out there, and some recipes would actually tell you to parboil the potatoes. It's a delicate balance. You want to parboil potato slices, and you want to really no more than 5 minutes, so that when you start moving them around from the saucepan to the baking dish for the gratin, they don't break apart, because then you're just going to get crumbs, potato crumbs, and at the end you should have just made like mashed potatoes, and that would have been kind of the same, result at the end. So potatoes, if you're using potatoes or you mix in potatoes, you want to mix in potatoes with the butternut. I do it all the time. I just do half butternut, half potatoes. Just put everything raw. Just put potatoes and butternut raw in there. So we're gonna start layering our dish. Maybe before I should make the cream that I'm gonna put in the dish, so it'll be easier. So we're gonna take a cup, about a cup, and remember that's cooking, that's not baking. So baking, you really want to be careful about each measurement, that you put in, like flour and the liquids and everything like that. In baking, you can really be a lot more liberal with what you use. You can do trial and error, can do like, I liked it best last time when there was less. Some people actually cut the cream with milk or even water or broth. I never had super good result. Either go totally with milk or cream, or go totally with broth. You get two different tastes. The two are good, but just choose one. So we have our cream here, and I did light cream. You can use heavy cream, light cream, half and half. You can mix and match. Like if you want, if you just have milk, you can put in a tablespoon of sour cream if you have it in your fridge. You can be inventive with that. You don't need to stick to what's on the recipe itself. So in the cream, I'm going to want to bring it to room temperature, so on the stove quickly, in a small saucepan. So I'm going to put my garlic cloves. So I cut 2 garlic cloves, and I mix and match. I'm using 2 of those little pods of garlic already crushed, already ground, that you find in the frozen section that I talked about in all my classes before. And if you need me to remind you what that is, I will. That's called Doro, and that's the brand. And they make garlic, they make cilantro, parsley, basil, ginger. I think that's about it for now. And it comes frozen. And since those are my 2 last ones, I just got them out of the fridge, out of the freezer. So I'm gonna just put them in here. And then we want to get one of the other stars of the dish is the sage. So I got fresh sage from the supermarket, because I had already mowed down mine in my yard. But you can also get dried sage leaves if you want. I find the fresh one much more potent and give you a much nicer flavor. Same, if you're not a sage person, joke. You can also use rosemary. Yeah, so I kept fresh rosemary and thyme from my garden here. It's drying up nicely. You can use some of that. Rosemary and thyme go well with the butternut. So you can use rosemary or thyme. Same, you have to really play on the flavors that you think you'll like in the gratin. Sage, I would go lightly on the sage. Don't want to go too much, because the fresh sage can be pretty potent as far as a flavor. So I just roughly chop it up here and put it in the cream. And then you're gonna season the cream, because seasoning with salt and pepper the butternut slices in the dish is really tricky. If you don't see how much you're putting, you can end up putting too much, especially I find the salt, and I'm not super big on salt. So I just season it in here. So I just use the little dispensers, see what I have. Pink salt, she's really good. And I'll just season my liquid. I wanted to mention you could also have used garlic powder instead of, if you didn't have any fresh garlic or any crushed garlic in your freezer, you can always use the powder. This one I find is the one I like the best. No advertisement, but it's from Trader Joe's. It has the best like aftertaste of all of them. A lot of them have this weird like metallic taste. So that's what I recommend using. And then we're gonna use nutmeg. So you can use ground nutmeg. And nutmeg pairs very well with all the winter squashes and potatoes. Or you can use, if you're lucky like me, you have fresh nutmeg nut that you can ground in it. And it's nice because it will be a little bigger grains of nutmeg than the powder you buy in the store already ground. So I really like the taste of the fresh nutmeg. And you can find good ones. The good ones come from Jamaica. You can find them on Amazon, or you can find them at Italy. I have obviously not looked at Whole Foods if they have them yet, but would be pleased if they had them. So we got our herbs, we got our spices, you know, nutmeg, salt, pepper. So you're gonna just whisk it a bit, and then, like I said, we want to warm it up a little bit. So a little bit above room temperature in a saucepan quickly. Nothing too hot. You don't want it to boil, certainly. You just want it to warm it up so it kind of gets to the same temperatures as all these other ingredients that we are using. So I'm gonna go and put that in a saucepan. Remember a little trick when you're heating up any type of dairy, milk, cream, half and half in a pan. Rinse your pan with cold water first, and just like rinse your pan under the sink and drop the water. Do not wipe the pan, and then pour your cream in there. And the thin layer of water that's left at the bottom of your pan will prevent the pan from burning at the bottom. So it will prevent that you have to scrub for 5 minutes the bottom of your pan after you heat up any dairy. So I'm just gonna disappear and put that on between medium, low and medium. And I'm just gonna wait for it to heat up just a couple minutes. No, not a long time. So in the meantime, I'm gonna go with my fresh sage here, if I can, and I'm gonna find some nice leaves. And those will be used to decorate the top of the gratin. You can make like a little flower decoration at the end. Something else you can do with the sage leaves that's really nice if you're, you know, serving a crowd is you can fry them in olive oil at the bottom of a saute pan for like a couple of minutes, and then sprinkle them with salt and pepper, and they look like really glossy and they look really pretty. And then you can put them on top of your dish. So I'm just gonna make a little pretty flowers here. Right here, little pretty sage flower that will transfer on top of the gratin when it's finished and before it goes in the oven. So I'm just gonna check on the cream. You don't want the cream, you don't even want it to simmer. You just want to warm it up. So once it's kind of like warmed up to the touch, you're good to use it. So we've buttered our dish. We didn't do the clove rub, but you could do the garlic clove rub. And the reason why is we have our garlic in the cream. So now I'm gonna start to layer it up. So we're gonna layer butternut squash first. And just gonna be really a rough layering here. Nothing fancy, but you want to try to cover the bottom of the dish fully. Another thing I want to mention about gratin, obviously, if you're doing just a side dish for, especially for a big meal like Thanksgiving, you don't want to put any meat in it, or if you're a vegetarian. But if you wanted to make a full meal out of it, in between the layer, when it's time to add the cheese part, you can also add some chopped up ham. You can add some pancetta. I wouldn't add some bacon because it's going to render way too much fat. But yeah, a little ham would be nice, or some prosciutto would be good. So that's an option. And same, you don't want to put too much because prosciutto, for example, is going to have a lot of salt. So you don't want the dish to become too salty. In France, they also put whole sausages in the middle of it, but they use higher, thicker dishes, and they'll cook a whole nice sausage in the middle. So we have a layer of butternut squash. And we're gonna put some of the leeks and just like sprinkle, I'll show you here, just sprinkle leeks, really like you would do like with onions. So it's not like you want a huge quantity of it. And I'll probably have some leftover because I think I cooked like 4 leeks total. And leeks are really good just with plain rice. You can add leeks in a soup. You can use those already cooked leeks to make a soup in a minestrone. They'll be really good. So that's the beginning of a layer. And I feel like my cream is just right. It's just warm. It's not, yeah, it's just warm. So I'm gonna eyeball it and drizzle like a third of the mixture because we're gonna do 3 layers. So I'm gonna drizzle a third of the mixture. If you're not sure, you can certainly use a cup since it was 1 cup total. You just drizzle a third of a cup. So that's a quarter. So and just drizzle, try to cover, just try to cover the whole gratin, the whole first layer. And then we have our cheese here. So the cheese, I said Gruyere, which right here, you could get Comté, which I didn't manage to get, but Comté is a more nutty, very good French cheese too. And those cheeses, you want to grate them when they are really cold, because otherwise they'll just kind of like break off in pieces and disintegrate. So I grated this when it was right out of the fridge. I grated it by hand. I like to grate really fine. One, obviously it makes a lot of volume, but it's easier to disperse all around. If you have those big, like, grated chunks, like you buy the cheese in the already grated in the package, you're gonna put way more than you thought, which is what happens in a lot of recipes. People put a lot more cheese than the recipe was originally intended to. So that's really light and fluffy, and so you can really spread it nicely. And same, you just put the amount you're comfortable with, knowing that we're gonna do 3 layers. So, and we definitely want to have enough cheese for the main part, which is the top, so that we have a nice golden gratin on the top crust, which is really achieved by the cheese. So that was layer 1. And we're just gonna repeat. So layer 2. So layer 2 is just like, you just don't want to have to move the pieces of butternut twice because they are going to be on the cheese and everything. So you want to put everything down right the first time. And the layers, it really depends on what vegetable you're using and the thickness of the slices you are using. But I think with the butternut, with 3 layers, the last layer would be the top. We're going to achieve what we want. So if you have butternut left, you can just freeze it and use it in a future soup, or make a little cup of soup for next week for one of the work days. This is the season of butternut squash, which, by the way, even if he's not there, thank you to one of my neighbors, Ken Mendes, who provided me with this 3-pound butternut that he grew in his garden this summer to do my class. It was really nice. So leeks, it looks like I really want to keep some leeks for my future bowl of rice and miso and soy sauce and leeks, which is delicious. So just cover up the leeks. We're gonna go again with our cream mixture. And I didn't even think of using the cup this time. The almond cheese. So now, if you want to add a little more salt or a little more pepper or a little more nutmeg, I recommend you do it in this layer. So it's still in between because the last layer is going to be topped with cheese. So it's going to be kind of the crust. My trick is like if I do it on in the first layer, then I need to remember I did it when I'm going to the second layer. So that's the foolproof trick, is just do it now. And I'm just going to add a little more pepper. I'm not going to go with salt. Hold on 1 second. All right. So now we are at our finishing layer, which is the one, remember, we kept the nice looking slices to make it look cool. So you can really go around and make it really pretty with those half slices that were from the main part of the butternut. And you can make it look kind of like a flower pattern, like a rose petal pattern. So trying to find the best ones. So that's a nice little pattern. It will look good at the end when you serve it. So we're gonna go with that. We're gonna put the last of our cream. Make sure all the garlic gets out in the stage. And the last of our cheese, the goal, remember, is to have a nice golden crust. So obviously it looks like I kept more of the cheese, which is my habit, for the top than for the in-between layers. So I really want to get that golden finish. So some people put little dabs of butter on top, on top of the cheese. I found you really don't need that. You have way enough with the cheese and the dairy inside. You really don't need to have extra dabs of butter. So I'm going to put my little flower here, and it's not going to look like professional, but it's going to look nice. And I would say that's just for the looks. I mean, you can eat the sage leaves if you want, or you can, I would eat the ones that are kind of like sauteed, fried in olive oil. I don't know, really, those are more for decor than anything else. So that's it. That's our gratin. You could also add walnuts, the old crushed, chopped walnuts on the top. That's something I've seen. Walnuts go well with the butternut squash. Not my favorite, but it's a nice touch if you want to add something like that onto it. And we're gonna cover this with aluminum foil. If your gratin rises over the top of the pan, you're gonna put a layer of parchment paper and then foil. And that's so that when you uncover the aluminum foil, you don't rip out the nice crust on top or the cheese if it's not roasted totally yet. So you can kind of pack it down a little with your hands so it goes down. So the goal of that is that, for me, it's that I don't have to use parchment paper and it's still under the top of the pan. So I'm just going to cover that with aluminum foil. And remember, we turned on our oven to 375 a while ago. And we're going to proceed to put that in the oven. It's going to bake for 40 minutes. And at about like 35 minutes, you want to open up and take a knife and run your knife all the way through the butternut to see if it's cooked or not. If it's tender, then you can keep the foil off and be another 10 to 15 minutes in the oven. You can even crank the oven up to 400 for a better golden crust. And that would be all in the recipe I sent everybody at the end. So obviously I will send pictures later because you won't see the result during this class of the gratin, but I will send pictures and I will be sure to taste it for my dinner tonight. And as an everyday dish, I love the gratin with just a salad, a green salad. I love gratin cold the day after. You can warm it up. You can warm it up in the oven if you want. Microwave, not really a fan of reheating already cooked dishes in the microwave. So don't forget to set your timer if you did the gratin to 35 minutes to check if it's going to be cooked. Another trick for if it's like for Thanksgiving for a big meal, you can also assemble the whole dish and then put it in the fridge. So I would say no more than the day before. So assemble everything, put it in the fridge. The day for serving, get it out of the fridge at least 30 minutes before you're gonna bake it, and then bake it like I'm doing today. It's key. It's like every meat, every dish you bake from originally getting it out of the fridge, you want it to reach close to room temperature before you put it in the oven. And you can also bake it, refrigerate it, and then put it back in the oven at 350 for probably 25, 30 minutes. Maybe, you have an oven big enough, you want to put it in with other dishes. That's obviously the least favorite method of being able to enjoy the dish to its potential. So I would say if you don't have time to do it that day, just do it the day before and bake it that day. You can maybe bake it in the morning and then try to keep it warm for a couple hours, something like that. So that's the butternut gratin. So are there any questions about the gratin before we move on to something else? No questions? Okay, so I'm going to talk about green beans. So I hope nobody will scream at me, but I call that on my recipe. I'm going to send you interesting green beans without sauce or almonds. So I don't know why. When I see green beans here, I always see them like drizzled in sauce or with some other veggies interspersed into it, or some almonds. Green beans are perfectly fine by themselves with some salt and pepper and herbs or garlic. Um, Green beans are super easy, healthy side dish. Same, it can be for Thanksgiving, but it can also be for everyday dinner. So I have green beans. So green beans, I will say the quality of the green beans we find in the stores is it's really hard to find good green beans. So be picky about the green beans you buy. Look at them. If they look like flashy green or something, they probably froze in the transportation circuit between the big giant production farm and Shaw's or your store. So they are no good. They're gonna have a horrible taste when you cook them because they've been already half frozen, but not the right way. So either buy fresh, something you can, I actually found those at Shaw's today and they were really good looking in the fresh section, the produce section, but I had to pick the ones I wanted because half of them had blemishes on them or were like way too big. So they were going to be full of seeds. And the beans, when you clean the ends and cut the ends, and then they should snap. They should snap. If they don't snap, they are not fresh. They're either too old, usually they're too old. That's what happens. So I know it's hard, like a lot of veggies we buy at the store are like not super quality, but at least looking at them and make sure like there's no blemishes when you buy them. And they are not like, you don't see, big seed pods because they are like, they've been cut like way past their prime. That's a good indicator. So I would say something about choosing green beans. You can buy frozen green beans. So if you're gonna do whole green beans, there are good French green beans, and they're not Frenched, they're French, which is different. French is a supposed method to cut the green beans to present them so that they look like really thin and really nice. But it's really one green bean sliced in like 5 different pieces. No, they have green beans from France at Trader Joe's. They're frozen. They are very thin. You can't always find them because I went yesterday and they didn't have any, but they are very much thinner than those ones that you can find. And they are absolutely fantastic. And you can just steam them for like 5 minutes from frozen. And then what I do is I take a saute pan after I steam them, butter and olive oil mixed up so it doesn't get to the burning point, and crushed garlic. Saute the beans for a couple of minutes in there after you've steamed them. And at the end, you can squeeze half a lemon. Gives it a real good taste. That's like the same. I do the same for the spinach, fresh spinach. You do the same. You can just saute them with garlic. And at the end, you can squeeze a little lemon. It doesn't need to be half a lemon, like lemon slice. It just gives them a little peps. Well, same for green beans. So it depends how you like to eat your green beans. If you like your green beans more cooked, what you can do is just use the skillet method, and you'll also get all this, and steam them in the skillet. So you start the skillet with olive oil and butter, saute the green beans for a couple minutes, then you add like half a glass of water, a quarter cup, and you put a top on, and you let them like kind of steam roast in there for, I say 6 to 9 minutes, depending on how cooked you like them. If you like them like really crunchy, like rare, you're gonna do like 6 minutes. If you like them more cooked, you can do 9-10 minutes. You don't want to go too far. Green beans, the good thing about them is their color is a good indicator of how cooked they are. So they go through that like glossy stage where they're like gonna be crunchy and everything, and then they start to turn like khaki, kind of dirty khaki green. That's when they are very cooked. Nothing wrong with it. It's just how your taste buds are with green beans. So basically for green beans, I would say you don't need any sauce. You don't need any like super duper overpowering almonds or other things that are just cover the taste of the green beans. You can just do garlic. You can also add parsley. Parsley goes really well with green beans, and it really brings up the flavor of green beans. And the parsley, you want to do it fresh at the end. So you want to roughly chop up parsley on top of the dish when it's like in the serving dish or on your plate. You don't want to do it when it's like still in a hot pan. But parsley. Another thing I've tried is red pepper flakes. You can sprinkle red pepper flakes if you like spicy stuff, but if you put just a little bit, it's not gonna be like super, super hot, but it's definitely gonna kind of bring a little zazz to the green beans. So those are simple methods where you can really do something that doesn't take much time, doesn't take multiple elongated steps to have a healthy, because there's a lot of fiber in green beans, healthy side dish. So you can think of other vegetables where you can just steam broccoli and drizzle really good olive oil on them at the end. What's the difference between flat parsley and curly parsley? So flat parsley has a stronger taste than curly parsley. It's personal. I grew up with curly parsley, and I actually am partial to curly parsley. I grew it in my yard. I just harvested what was left on the plant. Curly parsley gives the texture on top of the taste. So that's something too that you need to think about is texture. Always think about texture. What does the herb that I'm using or the spice that I'm using bring? Does it bring just like flavor? Can it bring something else? Can it bring texture? Like ground pepper. Can you grind pepper a little less fine? Like use one of those grinders that you can turn the wheel to adjust how fine you want to grind. Is a texture sometimes for some things bigger rounds are gonna be tastier and they're gonna add something to the dish than just like the powder that you can find in already round in a bottle. That's all things to think that are really easy, that don't add more calories to a dish, and that make it fun. On the parsley thing, I'm gonna show you something when I find it in my freezer. Sorry guys, that's the curse of not remembering what you put in your freezer. So I was looking at ways to keep my parsley before the first frost last week, and from my garden. And so I found that on the internet, which is really cool. So just do a quick little thing on the herb keeping from the garden. Might be too late for most of us, but never know. So I cut all the parsley sprigs. They were about that big. I obviously keep the sprig too, because you can use the sprig for broth or soups or things like that. So, and then I laid it flat in a Ziploc bag. All the sprigs, everything. I washed them. Obviously, I washed them. I dried them. I laid them flat. And then basically you get the air out of the Ziploc bag and you just roll it really tight. And you see, you saw my little rig with the elastics. And so when you're gonna want to use some parsley, you just open the bag and just pull a couple sprigs out of it. So it's good because you can get multiple uses out of it instead of like chopping it up and put it in cubes, which is another like super time consuming thing. And I've done so many herb ice cubes that I've never used. I don't like the ones in water because they render too much water and then your herbs are soggy. The ones in olive oil, they're good, but they only have like certain uses, like, you can't use it in a soup because there's too much olive oil with the herb now. So I found this method and I thought I'm gonna try it. So we'll see, but I have a bunch of curly parsley for the winter. So I will let you know in the next class if I've used it and if I was happy with the result. So finally, I wanted to talk about roasting vegetables. Roasting vegetables is another very simple, very not time consuming, very easy. Obviously, you need space in your oven. So I know at Thanksgiving, you have the turkey already in there, or you have some big roast or something. But if you can, roasting veggies just brings out all the flavors out of those root veggies. It's easy. You can do everything in the roasting pan. You don't need to use like 3 different pans. And same, you just always, I said, preheat your oven. Cut the veggies in equal pieces so that they all roast at the same speed. So you don't get some pieces at the end that are not cooked and some of them that are really, overcooked almost. So the cubes are the best solution usually. You can do slices too, like with squash, acorn, things like that. You can do big thick slices. Just don't go too small, because if you go too small, you'll find out that it burns before it cooks inside, and so the result would not be ideal. So I would say like at least 1 inch cubes, or like 1 inch thick slices minimum. Don't be afraid. If they are big pieces, they'll just take a couple more minutes to cook instead of 2 smaller pieces that will like burn on all the edges, but the inside will not be cooked. So roasting veggies is definitely a good way to get side dishes too. And you can always like roast a whole pan and then have some leftovers and keep them to do something else. Then you can have some with pasta. You can put them in a soup, put them as another side for another evening. So I really like to roast veggies. I was going to show you. So half-size roasting pans are really good to do that, to roast veggies. And you want preferably a thick roasting pan, so it bakes evenly and the heat just get dispersed evenly in the pan. So the beauty of those is you can do everything in the pan. Just sprinkle olive oil at the bottom of the pan, a good amount, good olive oil if you have some or if you can get some. I don't recommend other oils just because of the roasting temperature that you usually use. You want olive oil. No butter, absolutely no butter. And same, use up your cabinet of spices. So you can use mixes. I usually don't use mixes, but this one, it's called Italian style sofrito, and it's from Trader Joe's. And it's actually a nice blend. There's parsley, rosemary, sage, red pepper, garlic. It's actually a super nice blend that I used a lot of that this summer with eggplants, zucchini, things like that. So maybe not as much adapted to the winter squashes, but you can still do that on potatoes. It's delicious. You can use onion powder, you can use cumin, you can use cayenne, you can use paprika. Do not recommend smoked paprika. I think we talked about that at a class before. I just had no mixed results with smoked paprika. I feel it's too strong. You can use Italian seasoning. You can use herbe de Provence if you can get your hands on real ones. Garlic powder, you can use sage, then you can use your dried herbs that you kept from your garden maybe. Rosemary, thyme, things like that. And just put your cut up vegetables in your pan that's been drizzled with olive oil. Put your spices on top, your herbs, and just mix up with your hands. You don't need to dirty 3 spoons. You don't need to dirty another bowl to mix it, because I find when you mix it in another bowl first, what happens is half the olive oil stays in the bowl, or unless you scrape it with another tool. So just do it. Do everything in your pan. That's why I always tell people cooking is not hard. It doesn't have to be hard. You can do things that taste really good with really limited material and funds. So, and still have a great tasting result at the end. After you put your pan with the veggies in the oven, you will toss them around halfway through so that they cook evenly. One thing for having some really caramelized vegetables is you can add, when you're adding the spices and the herbs, you can add like a teaspoon of brown sugar. Light brown sugar usually works good, or you can do some, I mean, I wouldn't do some regular brown sugar, it's gonna caramelize too fast. Oh, regular white sugar, I mean, sorry. So yeah, light brown sugar will work really good if you want caramelized finish. And what you can do is, if you don't, I'm not like a very sweet, salty person, but to offset the sugar, for example, you can have like, you can have something that's more like with cayenne or with sriracha powder, because there is sriracha, like the famous sauce with the rooster on it. Well, now they make actually sriracha seasoning powder, and it's actually pretty good. And it's pretty close to the taste that you get with the sauce. So you can put it directly on your vegetables. So then you won't have to do the sauce and put it on the table. So another little tip here. And if you mix and match vegetables, you have to be really careful about one, that they will really go at the same temperature and the timing. So I put a list together of things you can mix and match. Like you can mix, potatoes and beets, and they have about the same roasting time. But you really need to be careful if you mix and match about what's going to be done first. I suggest if you want to do a batch of two vegetables that go at the same temperature. For example, say you want to roast some fennel and you want to roast some shallots, just either divide the pan or put a different pan for each vegetable, so you can pull out earlier the vegetable that's already going to be finished roasting. Like shallots are going to go faster than fennel, and then beets certainly. And the roasting really brings a different taste out of the vegetables. I've had people who told me they never liked beets until I told them you just were having beets. Because we've been so used to our mother steaming the beets for like 2 hours in a kettle, and we've mostly never had roasted beets until recently, because nobody was talking about roasting beets. Roasted beets are fantastic. They have a totally different taste than a beet salad you've ever had. Things like that. So they're really, really, you can make really good dishes with just roasting veggies. And same, you can just, if you don't like too many spices or herbs, you can just do salt and pepper. And then you can adjust to taste when it comes to your plate. Maybe you can add some fresh herbs on them, or you can, do a little vinaigrette and eat, like for example, the roasted beets or the roasted fennel. You can let it cool down, and then you can have a salad with it, and therefore use like a simple vinaigrette. That's something too. So you don't have to eat the roasted vegetable, especially when they're warm. You can have them when they're cold too. So that was really my tonight. I don't know if people have any questions. I would like to hear what people are planning to make for Thanksgiving. It would be cool just to go around quickly and share what people are planning, or if you've even thought about it yet. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to make turkey legs confit, which is simmered slowly in duck fat for like a day, and then you drain them, and then you crisp the skin in the oven. And I'm probably going to make roasted vegetables. So I would love to hear what other people are going to have, or if they have questions about the class. Mike, to you. Mira, I found the sriracha powder, I think at Hannaford. It's hold on. It's from like McCormick Gourmet, their gourmet line. So I'm pretty sure I found it at Hannaford.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for participating, Kelly. Kathy, sorry. The stress is coming out now, like big breath. So who's gonna make the gratin?
I'll try. I'm going to try it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll send the recipes. I'll send the recipes to Trisha tonight, so she can send them along with the sign up for the next class.
Perfect. Good. Perfect.
Really good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a
Some-
question of what is a good kind of olive oil for roasting?
Okay, so I don't like to, so I've been using that right now, and I promise I am not paid by Trader Joe's in any way, shape, or form. I feel bad because I'm like, someone's looking at me, it's like, everything here is coming from Trader Joe's, that's bad. But I've been using their oil, it's actually pretty good. I usually honestly use the same oil for like drizzling or vinaigrettes than I use for roasting, because I think the oils that are marketed for cooking are really subpar as far as quality. So, and I never buy the like light oil or something like that they advertise, like light oil for cooking and stuff like that. So I really stick to like having one bottle. I found it's a lot easier. And that's this oil gives you a really good taste. The California olive, is that called? The
Yes.
one in the
Yeah,
square green bottle. Yeah, if you get the
Yes.
most expensive one, the one, I don't know what they call it, but it's actually very good. So I use that too when I have some. That green bottle of their best like extra virgin olive oil is really good.
There's a lovely message here. Vero, you have done a wonderful presentation. This must be Phyllis. And Ralph is making the au gratin with our homegrown veggies. So many tips.
Oh,
Thank you. And I would second that. This was fantastic presentation.
Yes.
Thanks
Yeah, thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And so I see you guys in a month.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for
Merci.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night, everybody. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye bye.
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 Great job.